von Gickingen von Gickingen. Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm so very excited this week to be collaborating with some wonderful Dolly friends for an Instagram and YouTube group collaboration. Hosted by the lovely Kat of Magical Girl Kit Kat, we were invited to each choose a character from one of our favourite Studio Ghibli animated films to be inspired by. We'll then customise one of our dolls to cosplay that character. Please note, this project is a fan tribute only. We are neither endorsed by nor affiliated with Studio Ghibli. I've loved Ghibli films since I was little. Laputa was the first of their films I saw when it aired on the BBC in 1988. I watched and re-watched the VCR copy until it wore out. Since then, I think I've seen all of their films, so it was hard to choose a favourite. My recent passion for creating new clothing for the Smartdoll boys did help to steer me in the direction of one character in particular though. The dashing protagonist, Baron Humbert von Gickingen, first seen in Whisper of the Heart, and then The Cat Returns. Let's just call him the Baron. I do hope you'll enjoy following my creative journey as I craft and sew each of the pieces needed to recreate him using a Smartdoll guy's body as my base. To begin with, I made a freeform board to get my references and plans together. I'll use it to track my progress too. Practically speaking, I started with his hands. The Baron wears white gloves, and I recalled having a spare 3D printed pair from our Fragile project back in November 2023. The size looked close enough to the existing guy hands that I decided just to repaint them as is. A few thin coats of white acrylic paint did the trick. Next up, I drafted a slightly different version of my men's shirt pattern to have a higher neckline and standing collar. Assembly was straightforward, joining fronts and backs at the shoulders, sewing the chest darts, setting in the sleeves, gathering and attaching the cuffs, sewing and turning the collar, aligning it with the neckline, and layering with the facing pieces. With all that done, I had my first test piece. Sadly, not a keeper though, as the neckline was far too wide for what I needed. I was able to make a simple alteration to my pattern pieces though, using masking tape over the collar pieces to let me redraw them. This time using measurements directly from the doll, not estimates. Version 2 was much better, and I was happy to have a tangible start to this project. The only thing I had left to add was a buttonhole opening in the back to allow the stand port access. Oh, and I also tried out something new to me with the snaps. Using the facing to keep everything hidden from the front, I installed the male sides of the snaps with only the tip protruding from the fabric. Doesn't this give a super clean finish to this side of the opening? I really like it. I made his blue bow tie next, from cotton fabric and stuck with double-sided quilting tape mostly. The main part was folded over and scrunched in the middle and attached to a band with a snap closure. I think it looks very smart with his shirt. For Baron's waistcoat, I used the shirt pattern to get me started, making it shorter and a touch wider to allow for layering and lowering the front. I looked out the cotton fabrics I need, with a darker red for the collar and black for the back. Once I'd drafted the front and back, I used them to help sketch out the collar piece, which will sit pretty much flat against his body. Drafted and cut out, it's time to make the waistcoat. The outer collar is stitched, turned and pressed. It's lined up with the rest of the body, and a full inner lining in black layers over the top to enclose it. Turns out I could have made this bit much easier on myself if I'd just sewn the front and neckline and armholes to start with. I could have then joined the sides of the outer and lining before finishing up the bottom hem. I got myself all muddled up though, and ended up having to join the side seams last of all. It all turned out fine though. I just patiently hand-stitched the lining last of all and ended up with a splendid finish. I decided to add a little ribbon and buckle to the back, and would also add a faux button and snaps to close it in the front. Very dapper indeed. Next up, I grabbed the same free Smartdoll pattern that I mentioned in my last video featuring my milk vampire, Rysand. I chose a medium weight ivory cotton for his suit with a lightweight white cotton lining. The trousers were very simple to assemble with lovely smart pockets, though I omitted the belt loops and used a simple snap closure in front. Here I need to finish hand stitching the waistband lining down and close the front crotch seam. Then the inner seam, and they're done too. For Baron's tailcoat, I referenced both real menswear patterns and the free Smartdoll women's blazer, and mashed those ideas together to come up with my own. I really liked the way the collar of the blazer worked, so I tried to replicate that here. I cut test pieces from ivory outer and darker beige fabrics, and set about making a test version without sleeves. I assembled my pieces, but please ignore the way I attached the collar here, no idea what I was doing at this point. I turned the test piece right side out and thought it looked fairly good. I just wanted to alter the fit a little here and there, and would include a standport hole too. I cut out my version 2 pieces and measured the armhole to get the sleeve right too. I'll make this one a little differently. We'll include a sleeveless lining and do the collar right this time too. Here's the fabrics I'll use with the darker lining. Got all the pieces cut out, and we'll start with the darts. I'll leave a space in the back for the stand when I join the back pieces together too. I'll join them at the shoulders, then we'll sew just the upper part of the collar, turning and pressing it before lining it up with the neckline, with the lining on top of it too. For the sleeveless lining, I've pressed in the seam allowance of the armholes, and I'll hand stitch it in place later. Here I'm going to line up the collar, and I'll need to put snips into the seam allowance to bend the fabric. Okay, I just need to hem the sleeves and then get these stitched together. I tack stitched the collar first and checked it for puckers before proceeding. Once I sew along the front and neckline, I'll sew all the side seams closed too. Okay, the jacket looks a little like a box so far. The collar looks fine, and so I'll line up the bottom seams and leave a gap to turn it all through later. I trim down the seam allowance a little and snip the curves. I carefully grab and turn through the coat tails, all through the little gap that I left. And then I realised I've already got 2 great big armholes that I could turn it all through instead. Ah! It's looking good, I just need to tidy and press it all. I really love the little hand-sewn touches like this on a garment. I'm hand stitching the lining to the armhole of the jacket, all the way round, being so careful just to catch a few threads at a time, and none of these stitches will show on the outside. And there's the tailcoat finished, with the exception of 2 fabric-covered buttons, which I made and attached while at a local in-person sewing circle that I attend here. From there I moved on to his cane, taking a piece of wooden dowel, the right size to fit his hands, and drilling a small hole in one end. I push some twisted wire into the end for this epoxy sculpt to grab onto and allow me to sculpt the curved end of his cane. This 2-part compound cures rock solid over a few hours, and since I ended up with a little too much, I pushed the excess into a silicone mould I made for casting doll eyes. Next up, I grab my Fimo leather clay. That's right, we do all the crafts here on my channel. This stuff bakes like regular Fimo, but remains flexible afterwards, especially if it's rolled out nice and thin. I made this one-off test piece, moulded over the top of a shoe last, but baked without it, and it looks like it'll totally work. I want to use this stuff to make the Baron some Oxford-style smart shoes. I altered these shoe lasts to have squared toes, and cut thick mountboard soles for them. I used some leather Fimo to create raised heels for the soles, using a razor to add grooves. I used masking tape over the shoe last to create these pattern pieces, then cut them out of a 2-colour blend of the leather clay. Rolled very thin, using mountboard strips to manage the depth. I try out the pattern piece on the last, adding faux stitched detail using this wheel tool. Eventually I have all the pieces cut and pressed together. I was going to bake the shoe empty, but it's too floppy, so I opted to line it with tin foil and bake it with some balls of foil inside to hold the shape. While I wait for paint to dry on the soles, I cut down the wooden dowel to size since the handle has now cured, and I give it a few coats of paint too. I've already been asked by my patrons who had a sneak peek to show some more leather clay shoemaking in a separate video, so subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. Didn't his shoes turn out nicely? I gave them a wash of watery black acrylic paint, dabbing off the excess with a paper towel to highlight all the stitches and edges and give them a burnished, worn leather look. The paint was sealed with a coat of matte Mod Podge, and I just love the finished look. With lacing holes already punched in, I can really lace them up. Doesn't he look good so far? I gave hubby Craig some reference sketches of Baron's head to use to sculpt a 3D printable version. He resin printed it along with Baron's top hat. I think he did a brilliant job translating the flat 2D character into something tangible with sculpted hair details too. It was simplest to sculpt the eyes in place so they can be painted and glossed later. First, I need to sand down the bumps where the supports were attached. There, much smoother all over now, ready to paint with the airbrush. And here's the first base coats added. I used Craig's airbrush paints and will hand paint in all the following details. I carefully mark in the differently coloured fur, the pink ears, and colour the eyes too. The entire painting process took about 2 full days, even with me using a heat gun to speed up drying times. Once I was happy with all the painting, and Baron's lovely green eyes, I snuck into Craig's new hobby shed, where he's set up my airbrushing booth to spray some matte MSC all over the head and hat to protect the paint. Once cured, I then added some glossy UV no-wipe top coat to the eyes and nose. Oh, he's looking so handsome. I wanted to finish his top hat with a fabric band, matching the coat lining. I cut and glued it carefully, and with that, he's done, right? I'm not missing anything? While I look over everything I have and prepare to get him all dressed, please let me thank and welcome in the newest member of my Patreon, Sarah Ellen. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for watching. Please be sure to subscribe and leave a like or a hype if you're enjoying the video. It all really helps my channel to grow. Let's get him all dressed up now. I'll be borrowing this custom body blushed cinnamon soft sofubi body from Shota, who is my never gonna give you up. We'll get all his layers on. I really love to see my Smartdoll guys all smartly dressed up. His shoes slip on nice and easy, and he's wearing some socks underneath too. Now, let me look over my planning board and make sure I've not missed anything. Oh, yes, indeed, a tail. I genuinely nearly forgot about it completely. Well, I bend and cut sturdy wire so it'll slip over his trouser band. I need the tail to line up with the opening of his tailcoat. I sew up a tail shape to fit the wire length and cut bias strips of fabric to wrap and pad out the wire with. Once it's thick enough, I glue on the cover, mix up a matching paint colour and paint the tail. I had considered adding fur to the tail, and the head actually, but I really didn't feel it would have the right vibe in the end. It wouldn't match the 2D smooth animation style, you know? Well, with that, and his cane and hat, he's ready to model it all for us. Huge thanks to Magical Girl Kit Kat for hosting this fantastic Ghibli-inspired doll cosplay collaboration. And a huge thanks to all the participating channels and creators. I will have everyone's links in the description box below, so please do check them out. I'd love to know what you think about my dashing Baron in the comments below. Please tell me what you like most about him and what you would have done differently. Please watch until the end for a group shot of all our dolls, and please take care. I'll see you again soon. Bye!